All right, guys, let's take a look at two Chevrolet S10s. This is the two generations that we got here in the United States from, I believe, 81, 82 to 2005-ish. That one there is a first generation, 1985. That one there is a second generation, 1997. Now, although the front ends may have changed a little bit on each of them, they both generations looked like this. And then, as you can tell from the front, both of these are stock ride height. They are roughly the same height. Maybe a little lower on the 85 than the 97, but pretty even. On a good day, a good sorted out, good running model, that one there is going to be cheapest in $3,000 to $5,000, and that one there all day long $3,500, and that's about all you're going to get out of a good sorted second gen. That one there, the first gens go for a good bit more money on the regular, and let's take a look at why. Here they are from the back, and both of them say Chevrolet across the entire tailgate. Both of them. I will say, behind each one of them, I definitely prefer the first gen. I prefer the first gen pretty much all the way around, starting with the fact that this bumper here is solid. It's one whole piece solid metal. Second gen, pretty squishy, pretty plasticky. The bottom is metal, but the sides and top are plastic. As far as height of the bed goes, they're roughly about the same. That's right about the middle of my belly. And then this one is maybe the tiniest bit lower, but as far as load goes, you're going to load them about the same way. Let's take a look at the second gen on the side first. One thing to note, the rims, if everything is stock for stock and two-wheel drive to two-wheel drive or four-wheel drive to four-wheel drive, they will match up. So these wheels, because both trucks are two-wheel drive, these wheels will fit that truck, and that truck's wheels will fit this truck. So all wheels will fit as long as, you know, they're stock for stock and you know, the same two-wheel drive or four-wheel drive. Side profile of the second gen. Side profile of the first gen. And I will go ahead and tell you that I prefer the first gen, and I really prefer the long bed. I am a long bed fanatic. I love a long bed. A lot of people don't, but man, I love the long bed on these. I just, ooh, there's something about it. There's just nothing else that looks like a long bed first gen S10. I just love it. So we're in the inside of the second generation. Now notice all the gauges that you have. Believe it or not, there's really not a lot of difference in the gauges you have from the first gen to the second gen, but these gauges in the second generation are so generic GM 90s that it's ridiculous. Every single vehicle in the 90s had this style of gauge cluster, and I just do not prefer it. I just don't. One difference in this is you push the lights, as opposed to the first generation, you pull the lights. Everything else is fairly laid out the same. You still pull the hood, you still push the brake. This one is a 5-speed, but it does have cup holders. And one thing that they did not get rid of, that a lot of people note that is sort of famous for the S10s, is the cup holders in the glove box, which I personally feel is the worst idea known to man. That's a terrible idea, but they still have it in the second generation. And you know, HVAC, radio controls is all about as generic as it comes. This one's even still got the tape player in it. Pretty generic. And then, you know, fairly similar to what we're about to see over there in the first gen. The thing I like about the second gen as well is you have little pockets here in the door panel. It is still regular roll up and down windows, still regular lock it and unlock it yourself doors. And one thing that's sort of famous for GM back in this time is you have two different keys, one for the door, one for the ignition. Same way in the first gen over there. So here we are now in the first gen. Notice all the gauges are actually the same that we just had. Speed, fuel, oil pressure, volts, and temperature. That's actually the same gauges that we had over there in the second gen, but I really like this layout here. And depending upon which version of the S10 you got different gauges. So the top of the line, I believe it was called the Tahoe, or it might have been called the Durango, in the early 90s actually had a digital. All of this was digital. It was really just a bunch of lights that lit up, you know, whenever you were going down the road, but they were still pretty cool. This one, the lights pull as opposed to push as it was on the other one. This one is an automatic. It does have the gear selector here underneath the fuel gauge. Pretty cool. This one does not have the cup holders in the floor. It did have a rubberish sort of mat under here, and it was all rotted, and so I took it out. One thing to note that they didn't get rid of, the cup holders. I believe that that is a terrible idea. I truly don't think that that was that was planned to go that way. It says S10 right there. I do like that. I like the fact that the 80s, they had a lot more character. The radio in this one is not factory, of course. The factory radio was very cool, and I honestly hated to get it out of here, but it didn't work anymore, and so it had to, you know, had to get out of here. Terrible situation. The door is the same. Regular roll up and down windows, lock and unlock yourself locks. Both trucks, both generations, did have power of each of these. Neither one of these trucks have that. Both of these are plain Jane pick 'em up trucks. Speaking of similarities, let's go ahead and see where both of these trucks are very similar, and they really didn't change anything. They just sort of updated it. The speakers, let's go side by side here, are here in the dash. Not very easy to change, I know. Been there, done that. The seats are a little different. This one's got the curve right there at the shifter. The first gens, even with the automatic, or even with the straight drive, did not have that curve. But look at these. I mean, they look very similar. They're very similarly laid out. Of course, first gen is flat right there, but you know, they look very similar. Once you go ahead and undo the seat, you have storage, both of them. You know, not bad. That little belt thing, which I don't think works on either one of these, is supposed to sort of like latch and let you have like a reference point as to how high you lifted it, so you can, you know, sort of lift it like that and it not go back. Doesn't work on either one of these, but the interiors are very similar to each other. I prefer the quality though of the first gen. I just don't like the fabric-ish. I'm a big fan of the vinyl. Also, take note, even though the second gen has the headliner, the light is actually surprisingly the same and in the same location. Both of the trucks have sun visors. I believe that's an added-on mirror. I don't believe that came factory. And the second generation has an oh no handle. Oh no! Somebody wrecking. Now the first gen doesn't have the headliner, but I don't remember it having the oh no handle. All right, we're taking a look at the inside of the hood on the first gen. This is a 2.8 carbureted. This is a carbureted. These did come fuel injected. You could get them fuel injected with the 2.5, the 2.8, and the 4.3. All three of these engines came in the first generation, but this is a carbureted 2.8 with a 700 R4 4-speed automatic transmission. Do not recommend the transmission, but do recommend the engine. Look how much space you have in here to work. Fairly easy to get to everything. There's really no tight spots. There are in some places, but there aren't. But just look at how much room there is in here. This is a non-emissions vehicle. Like I said, these came with the 2.5 2-cylinder, 2.5 4-cylinder, 2.8 6, and the 4.3 6-cylinder. This is a 2.8 with the carburetor. The 4.3s only came out at the end of the 80s, the very beginning of the 90s. Most of them probably have the 2.8 and may or may not be carbureted. This one is carbureted. Now this one here is a 2.2 4-cylinder with the 5-speed manual backing it up. look at just the difference in how much more room you had in the first generation with the V6 as opposed to what you have here with the 4-cylinder. Pretty tight, not gonna lie, it's pretty tight in here. You've got, of course, you know, the air box and the master cylinder and things. It's just laid out in a way that is a lot tighter. Of course, you also still have all of the computer to go with it, ECM, PCM, you know, all of the ignition control things that you have going on. There's a lot more to this engine as far as electronics as opposed to the second gen or the first gen. The first gen is simple, barbaric, easy to work on. This is a lot tighter, a lot more vacuum, a lot more going on here. More efficient, but a lot tighter. This one came with the 2.2 4-cylinder or the 4.3 6-cylinder. And I'll be honest with you, that 4.3 would roll in these trucks, but I would prefer the 2.2 simply because it's a lot easier to work on, because a 4.3 in here is very tight. You're talking fender to fender all the way up. It's tight in here with the 4.3. All right, now both trucks have their flaws, but if I had to pick one, if you told me right now, Chris, you only have one body style of S10 that you can choose to drive for the rest of your life, and you said, which one will it be? It's going to be the second gen. A couple different reasons. I prefer the extreme body style. This one is not an extreme. I prefer the extreme body style. In my opinion, it's the best looking S10 that they ever built. It's what was around when I was in high school. It's what we all wanted when I was in high school, but none of us could afford. So it's going to be the second gen, both of which have their flaws, both of which have their love or hate from different groups. Everyone loves them or people hate them, however it may be. But I can absolutely 100% without a doubt figure out why this one costs more. And it's the quality of how it was built. The doors shut better, the things fit better, the hood doesn't have the big gaps in it. It's just a better built truck. That first generation is right there. I like the engines better. Now the 4.3, you know, could go either way, but I like the 2.5 and the 2.8 better than I like the 2.2 in the second gens. I believe that they're comparable in power. They get about the same fuel mileage, you know, all things being equal. The first gen is a better truck. It just is. It's a better vehicle all the way around. It's easier to work on. Parts, either one are going to be available. I mean, everybody has Chevrolet parts. They just do. But for me, if I've got to spend my money on it, it's going to be a second gen. Second gen 2.2 5-speed extreme. That one, of course, like I said, is not an extreme, but a 2.2 extreme or a ZQ8. I love those trucks. I love that body style. In my opinion, they are it. They are the best. Oh, I love them. But I do love S10s. I love all S10s. First gen costs more, better built, higher quality. The engines are just as good as the newer engines. Parts are available. They are a better built truck. But I don't know, just something about that second gen. You know, like I said, I was in high school when they came out. When the second gen came out, I was in high school. They were it. They had the it factor, and they're still easy to work on. A little bit tighter, but you know, still easy to work on, manageable. They're also an OBD2 vehicle, meaning you can plug in a scanner and figure out exactly what is going on. Hope it helps. Thank you much.